with about a story they would, soldiers would play he called it Mexicans in Space. And he said that they would sit around and create hypothetical, historical fictions and play them out. Like, what if the Mexicans had gotten to space before anybody else? Or what if the Aztecs had defeated Cortez? And so when I hear people introduce me as having come so close to being mayor, I think back in. All the things we might have done. It's a very interesting climate to try to talk about politics in this country right now, because there's so many things that we all want, and there's so many fears that we all have. And it's a question of trying to weave our way through these things and try to figure out whether or not there is a way to achieve our goals and the things that we hold in common and do it in a way that actually works, as opposed to a way that's just mythological or hypothetical or what have you. When I talk to people, particularly young people that I've met on the campaign trail, many of them, they don't know, they've never heard of me, they've not heard of Ralph Nader, they haven't heard of Barack Obama sometimes, so it's amazing. And you start just at the basic, what is a campaign about? This campaign gets launched because we think that there's certain things that we should have in our society, and that we should be pushing our society in a more democratic and egalitarian, sort of end point. And why can't we have that? Why can't we have health care for everyone? Why can't we not send our soldiers into a war that isn't a basis of provocation and what have you? Why can't we have a system that allows labor to have power against concentrated capital, that denies workers fair wages, that denies health care, etc. And it's very simple. Why don't we have solar energy? Why don't we have all the things that we could have had decades ago, right? Like, why is it that we're in this place? And some politicians, Barack Obama will say things like, well, you sort of can't have that because, he says of the people that kind of are promising all these great things, this idea that superheroes don't get elected to government. Or, and the suggestion there is you shouldn't have high expectations because, politics is a sausage-making factory, right, and that old adage. But I think that it's insulting to say to people that they should lower their expectations and somehow buy into this notion that there's something other than human beings elected into political office. The Canadian legislature did not have any superheroes when they found a way to get health care to their citizens. And so then the question comes up, what are we going to do? Do we simply say, hey, it's a two-party system, and the fact that the political parties have both supported this war, have both supported the erosion of your civil liberties, have now both supporting the idea of offshore oil drilling, even though there's no real argument that this is going to have an appreciable impact on oil prices. You can go down these paces, and it's like, well, presumably, their answer to getting to a better society is that the people advocating for the things that we think we should have now, you're simply not supposed to run, you're not supposed to talk about these things. It's a two-party system. You are relegated to deal with it. That's just the way it is. And there is this other kind of theme in that, this idea that this is the most important election you'll ever vote in. Okay, well, I hear that every 4 years. And if third parties and the issues we care about are not legitimate, then why don't we just dispense with the pretense that we have a democracy and people with different political views can run? Let's just outlaw it. Be easier, right? We don't have to pretend that there is this democratic thing happening. It's a two-party system. If you're not in the two parties, you don't have a right to run. You can't express views differently from these political parties. Okay, well, what do we say historically? What do you say to the abolitionists, you know, in the 1840s who formed parties like the Free Soil Party or the Liberty Party or the Republican Party to fight against pro-slavery parties? What do you say to them? What do you say to their political candidates in the 1840s, James Burney, who couldn't get even a percentage of the vote that Ralph Nader gets when he runs for office? Would you have been throwing your vote